Welcome to the Web Design Business Podcast with your host, Josh Hall, helping you build a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hello, friends. Welcome into this episode where we're going to talk about the friendliest people online, web developers. They are, right? You join a web design group, a forum or a Facebook group that's full of advanced web developers, and you know that you can ask a question, any question, and you will not get ridiculed or slandered or, belittled by your simpleton question. You just know web developers are going to be really nice and easy with you and give you the answer you're looking for. All right. Yes, we're done being sarcastic because we all have had the experience where we're terrified to ask a question in a web developer group for fear of the responses that we're going to get. However, there is a movement, a friendly web developer movement that has been growing over the last few years. And I'm so excited to bring on really somebody who has spearheaded this movement, Julia Taylor, who is the CEO and founder of Geek. Geek's awesome. It's essentially, so I recently launched Web Designer Pro, which is the 3 big C's: coaching, community, and courses. And Geek also has 3 C's, but theirs are code, community, and confidence. But at the key, it's friendly, like-minded, helpful developers. And I absolutely love my chat with Julia because, as you'll find out, Julia has quite a heart for being a developer who felt imposter syndrome and felt like a bit of a black sheep in a place where there wasn't that many welcoming people, but she really stood apart and embraced her personality and really used empathy and encouragement and really just helped a lot of people get started as web developers. And now she has this incredible community behind it. So we're going to dive into the web developer mindset and this movement. We also do explore some cliches about web developers and whether those are true still nowadays, and as to maybe why web developers are typically branded as not so nice people online due to, again, my previous experience. That's certainly what I experienced. So we're going to bust some of those myths and have a really fun conversation here about the friendly web developer movement. Julia Taylor, check her out at geekpack.com. I hope you enjoy. I sure did. Here she is. Julia, welcome officially onto the podcast. We were just talking about how I can't believe we have not connected before this.
I know.
So welcome to the show. I listened to your interview on my friend Shannon Mattern's podcast, and then not 2 days later, your booking agent reached out and told me about you. And I was like, oh my gosh, I literally just heard her interview. So would you like to start out with just what you do and who you do it for?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. When my team member reached out and said that we could do this podcast, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like he's a really big deal. And some of my students have posted your YouTube videos and posted about your podcast in my community. And, so I'm really excited to be here. I'm a little bit nervous. So thank you for having me. And I feel like I'm on with a famous person. My students are all going to be so excited when they hear this. So yes, thank you. My name is Julia Taylor. I'm the CEO and founder of Geek, and we empower women to achieve economic independence through tech skills. So we focus very highly on all things tech. My background and our bread and butter, it really kind of sits with WordPress. I have a course called WP Rockstar, but we take it from a slightly different angle than most people in the in kind of the WordPress world, and we go at it from the development angle and learn to code and the back end and PHP and dive in and CSS and tweaks and break things and fix it, and so we're a real techie bunch. And we love it. So that's really what we do.
Well, I'm so excited to have you on. I love your community. I love what you're up to. You're interesting, Julia, because I don't know too many people who are heavy on the development side of things. And I think that may just come from my background being in the Divi community. And yes, I started with Dreamweaver and did a little bit of HTML and CSS, but I've got pretty quickly into the page builder world and then front end design. And then see, I learned as much of CSS as I needed to, basically to customize sites, but that's about the extent of my knowledge, basic HTML and CSS. So it's really cool that you have a focus on that. I'm kind of curious, backing up before you started Geek Pack, what was your experience? Like, is Geek Pack, I guess the question that I'm wondering about is like, is Geek Pack what you wish you would have had when you started?
That is exactly what it is. So everything that I've created as a course creator and community leader and business owner has been what I wish I'd had when I was learning. And we constantly take student feedback and we make things better. And we just recently released a new product in partnership with Udemy that we can talk about later, that we're very, very excited about. But yeah, that's it. I don't have any formal tech background, no formal tech education. I used to work for the U.S. intelligence community. I deployed to Afghanistan a couple times. I met my now husband in Afghanistan back in 2018. Wow. So I had 2008. Gosh. 2008. Wow,
Gotcha.
long time ago. So I didn't have any background in what I'm doing now, and I kind of fell into coding by accident in a 9-to-5 job that I had. And I fell in love with it immediately because I saw that I made a little change and I saw it, and it was so satisfying, and I just loved it. And I learned as much as I could online, and I joined some communities and free Facebook groups and forums, and people were just mean. And I really struggled, and I didn't know how to start a business. I didn't know how to find clients. All the things that we teach and kind of mentor and coach now, or all the things that I struggled with, and why my journey as first a business owner and service provider building websites, why it took me so long. And then I transitioned into kind of teaching people what I'd learned over those years to try and massively reduce it down.
That's beautiful. And I feel like especially your niche in your area of the market of web design, with like the developer side of things, a lot of emphasis on coding and things like that. It is unique because of that, but also because of the like friendly community aspect, which is not common in the developer world. I know, like a few groups that I was a part of, I was like, good Lordy, like most, I guess it depends on the segment of web design. The Divi community in particular is overall really welcoming and really great. That's why I loved it. I have a membership, and my students, just the best people ever. Like, I can't rave enough about how friendly and welcoming people are. Not always the case in the developer side of things. Like, I remember getting ripped, asking some questions in the early days, and I was like, good Lord, I'm not going back to that. So hats off to you, Julia, for starting that. Did you start Geek Pack? I'm just terribly curious, to be that friendly developer place, or did you find like-minded people and then rally around the friendly developer brand?
No, that's exactly why I started it. And the name kind of implies everything. That's why it's called what it is, and why my business is now fully all things Geek Pack. It is a pack. We look after each other. We are a community. We support each other. We empower each other. There is no such thing as a stupid question in our community, and mean people are asked to leave, which we never have any mean people, because you attract the type of people who are like you and want to be around you. So I don't think a mean person would want to be in my community because they wouldn't enjoy it. So it was created because that's what I wish I'd had. And the women, and we've got some amazing men in the community as well. It's that supportive, like, oh wow, I really can ask a question and no one's going to make fun of me. And people will say, oh, I think this is a real basic question, or I feel silly for asking it. And the amount of people that say, nope, that does not exist here. It just makes the learning experience that much better. And one of the big things that we focus on is, and why we go at like learning tech and learning to code and learning the hard stuff, is because we want to build confidence. Because I'm a big believer that if you have confidence in your ability to learn anything, then you can say yes to things. rather than kind of shying away and going, oh, I'm going to have to pass them off to a real developer who is going to charge $500 an hour to clean up some malware when it's not that hard and anyone can do it and I can show you how. So there's a lot of emphasis on confidence, and I go at that from the angle of learn this hard skill and build that confidence and know that you can figure anything out with a supportive.
Yeah. I love that approach. It's one reason I recommend going through like some trainings and courses and feel good about making a website before you start to get clients like I did. I got clients first and tried to figure it out second, not the approach I recommend. I'm kind of curious. Have you found that people who are learning and have interest in the coding side of things, are you helping people get jobs as web developers and designers? Or are you helping people build a business while building like custom coded websites, or both?
Sure. Primarily the starting a business or scaling a business, growing a business, because that's what I did and that's what I know, and I'm most comfortable kind of teaching and mentoring and coaching. We do have a number of students who come to us and then go and get, a real job. They become an employee or they work for an agency or something like that. But for the most part, I'd say 90% of our students already have their own business. So maybe they're a VA and they want to add on some of the more kind of techie skills to increase their hourly rate, or they want to work from home and they want to start their own business and they want to do it, start a web design business. So that's typically where we go from.
So you said you're a WordPress gal. Do you use WordPress alongside custom code and CSS and all the other languages, or are you helping people code like complete ground up, nothing but HTML type of websites?
So we have been following the direction that WordPress is going for the last 5 years. So, for example, when I first launched WP Rockstar back in 2018, I taught building a WordPress site from scratch. And we used underscores, which is a very kind of bare bones theme. You couldn't even really call it a theme. It's just, there's not much to it. And that's kind of where we started. And I taught PHP and HTML and CSS to kind of build this starter theme from nothing into a full blown website. So that's really where we got started. And as WordPress has developed and as they're now into obviously Gutenberg, but now full site editing, we did a full revamp of WP Rockstar last year, and now we teach the nitty gritty of full site editing and everything that goes along with that. So we're following where WordPress is going, and we will continue to do that. And there's a lot of students that use page builders, Elementor and Divi, and they're all really popular, and like that's totally awesome. I just want them to understand not just like how a WordPress site is built and put together, but the foundation, the back end, because when things break, they know where to go to find it, the file structure and all of that. So we kind of look at WordPress holistically, and whatever people want to go to, but from a technical angle, we just want them to fully understand the whole WordPress platform.
Yeah, that's a really important approach, because I feel like WordPress is interesting in the market of web design because it is a tool that caters to both DIYers and really advanced developers, which is fascinating to me because I don't know if that's the case with Squarespace or Webflow or any, like, do you have any students who use other platforms other than WordPress, or is it more rare?
Yeah, we do. We have some. And I'm a big believer that if you could learn WordPress really well, all the other platforms are super easy. Like I love to go in and play around in Liquid, the coding language that Shopify is built on, because it's a lot like PHP, and you can make some real fun custom changes with a Shopify site. So that's and I do think that, I love WordPress, but it is not user friendly. Like it's not the best content management system for a beginner. And I go at that angle immediately with folks. And I'm like, look, it is a little bit harder than some of the other Squarespace, Shopify, and things like that, but it is the best. So if you can get over the bits that are kind of hard and confusing, then you're going to be at the top of your game, and you'll be able to do all the other things. And with the new product that we have now, the partnership with Udemy, that has meant that we can open up so much more course content because we have access to all of their stuff, and we can kind of piggyback off of that. So you asked before about kind of more coding. There's Python and JavaScript and everything you could ever imagine. We now have access to that, and our students can play around with everything that's available within Udemy.
I'm so glad we're friends now, Julia, because you are such a perfect referral partner for me, because I get a little I go probably to the moderate level of CSS, and that's about it. And somebody recently asked me, are you going to do an advanced CSS course? And I'm like, listen, man, everything I know about CSS is in my CSS course. It's a pretty in-depth course, but it goes way further than what I know. Now, I hope that's empowering for people to know that you can go very far with a little bit of knowledge of code. However, I agree to your point, Julia. It's good to know at least the most important aspects of WordPress file structure. Understand that there's a database behind WordPress that the pages are in. And if you break something, it's going to break the whole site. Or if you miss a line of CSS, it's going to break it. So those are really, really important things. But then there's essentially there's the no coders, and that's a whole different demographic. And then there's the people in the middle, like myself, who know quite a bit about CSS and a few things. But then you can go so much further if you want to. And I'm kind of curious, what doors are open to people who know much more about different languages of code from a business standpoint? Do you think that opens up more doors for white labeling and partnerships? Or do you think that they just have a bit of an edge when it comes to client work because they can do more, and maybe they don't need to hire out somebody who knows development because they can do it? Kind of curious what your perspective, and what are some of the benefits as to why somebody should learn a decent amount of coding for the business side of things?
Yeah, I think it really benefits my students who want to be able to create really custom bits of the website. That's probably what they've focused on the most. Is anytime a client might say, oh, can we do this or can we do that? It's yeah, of course, because I can figure out how to use custom code to make that happen. Now, that being said, I would say that the majority of my students, while they have the kind of code knowledge, they don't really use that in a day-to-day. It's more the confidence that comes from them knowing that they know it and knowing that they learned how to do those things. Because then if a client says, hey, can you do this or can you do that, or can we do SEO as well, or maybe something that's a little bit more advanced, the answer is yes. It's not, I don't know how to do that, I'm going to hand you off to someone else that you can pay. So that it's just giving them that confidence that I've learned this thing that Hollywood says is really hard, and if they can do that thing, then what else can they do? And so we've found that just being able to do this thing opens up so many opportunities in their own head that they never would have thought possible.
That's an interesting approach, that it's not necessarily all about the development skills or just being in a text editor coding all day, but that there is a level of confidence that comes with that. Because it's like experience. The more you sell websites, the better and more confident you'll be every time you do it. So I imagine, yeah, just like building websites, if you know you can troubleshoot things a lot faster, that's where it's at. And the one reason I'm so passionate about the community side of things, which we are very in alignment in, is if I don't know something, I want to have a network who can figure it out.
Yes.
Or friends like that. Actually, the time of recording this, I'm literally relaunching my membership now called Web Designer Pro. And one of the main reasons I have that is for that reason. I want you to be in a safe place with professional, like-minded people. So when you do have that question, you have a pool of people to get their feedback on and potentially hire or get help from, or be the one that they hire. So it is so important if you don't know it to have somebody in your corner. But I love that idea of like figuring out what to learn. On that idea of like what to learn, what would you say are the most important languages to at least have a basic understanding of for just a general freelance web designer?
HTML and CSS for sure. If you're going to be kind of dabbling with WordPress, then I think PHP is valuable to understand within the scope of WordPress. That being said, with full site editing, they're kind of moving away from that. So we are kind of what we teach and explain. We're kind of moving away from that as well. Although I do think if you can kind of understand PHP, it does make you feel pretty awesome, and you can kind of figure just about anything out if you have a pretty good handle of PHP, JavaScript, and I think. I would say UX UI is definitely, and that's not quite as kind of tech heavy on the technical side in coding, but it's still such a valuable thing to know. Mobile responsiveness, I mean, media queries absolutely is really important, and it's not all that hard once you understand how media queries work, and you can really like make a mediocre website look amazing on a phone. It makes a huge difference. So I would say those are probably the ones that kind of come to mind off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's a good overview. And like I said, the good news is HTML, basic HTML, and a decent amount of CSS, and that should just about be enough. I barely know any PHP. And I remember some of the issues I had where I needed help were generally PHP related with WordPress sites. There was like a functions file that we needed to tweak, or I'll never forget, I was working on a e-commerce site, a WooCommerce site, and the client wanted this really specific note that changed per product depending on the variation they picked. There was no plugin I could find that was a good fit, that was at least trusted. So I had a developer friend get in there, and I watched him. He lived local, and I watched him go into the PHP files and write this script. And I was like, I have no idea what you just did, but that's amazing. So I do feel like for like in that case, in this case, my friend David, who was like an expert developer, he is one of those situations where he did have the confidence to get in, and he primarily worked on e-commerce sites and really advanced stuff. So I don't know. I say all that to say, like, it's good to know what's possible and the reason why you might want to go a little further into coding if you want to. What's the personality type of coders and developers? Because you said you came from the intelligence industry, so I'm not shocked that you probably have an interest in detailed type of things and coding and stuff like that. What are other types of people you found come to Geek Pack? Are they all geeks, or are they different type of people?
I would say most are geeks, and in the past they were geeky, and maybe they went away from it, or they want to be, but they never felt comfortable kind of learning on their own or asking around. So we have a very good broad mix of geeks in the community, and I think attention to detail for sure, and I love the detail. A willingness to troubleshoot and problem solve. Because if you are in a text editor and you're playing around with code and something isn't working and you just give up, that probably, it's probably just going to frustrate you and you don't want to do more of it. But if you enjoy the trying and seeing and testing, it's still not working, and, Googling and asking for help and getting other people involved. And I remember when I first started the community back in 2018, and I was teaching some women PHP, and we're playing around with a custom theme, and I'm showing them how to, build a plugin and add, all this cool stuff and see the change on the website. And one of them was having an issue, and we're kind of going back and forth in the Facebook group and, try this and try this. And there's like 10 of us just troubleshooting with them. And then we figure it out, and it's the best feeling ever. Like when you figure that out, and it's taken a long time, and it's just that type of person who's willing to keep trying, look for the detail. And of course you're going to get frustrated. Everyone does. Who doesn't want to pull their hair out when something isn't working? But just knowing that there is a solution and having other people that can kind of help troubleshoot with you. That's the type of people that we have in our community.
I love that. It's a great reminder of the beauty of CSS and any type of coding, because you do get those wins. Sometimes they're quick wins, and sometimes it's a win after a troubleshooting day that can be awful, but man, the reward, like you get a different high and a different reward for fixing an issue with code that you don't get when you're designing or doing sales copy or copywriting or funneling or anything like that. It's like, I'm not going to write a sales email and be like, that's it. Yes, I found the answer. Hopefully it converts. But with code, it's like, it's working. Yeah. Like I remember a CSS thing vividly. I had a friend, he was like watching me code. This was when I first got into CSS, and I figured out how to change the background on every scroll. And this is before page builders and Divi and stuff. And I figured out how to do that. And I literally leapt up from my table and was like, oh, CSS win. And he was like, my God, you are such a loser. I probably should have joined Geek Pack if it was back, available back then. So I say that to say you can have such great moments as a developer. It's not all sitting in a dark basement, looking at a code editor, hating your life, and not being friends with anybody. And speaking of that, talk about a segue to the community aspect. Can you remind me, Julia, when did you start into the web design world and getting into code? Was that?
Let's see. About 2014 is when I started to kind of dabble and learn and Google and YouTube. And I didn't start my business as a web designer with starting an agency until 2016, and 2018 when I started the courses and the community, and I fully transitioned out of doing client work probably around 2020.
Okay, wow, very similar path. I started in 2010, so I saw the birth of Page Builder. So you probably came into the industry right when Page Builders were taking off. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you said you help a lot of women. It's cool to hear that you help men as well. I'm always curious about whether, like in this case, if you attract just a lot of women being a woman in the development space, or if it is only for women. But I'm kind of curious, back then, were you a trailblazer? Like how many gal developer, how many girl developers did you meet back then? Yeah. Or were development groups generally a lot of nerdy white dudes who aren't going to be very friendly when you ask a PHP question?
Yeah, that was the case. And to be fair, I've had just as many really rude women as I have rude men. And I always struggle with that when that kind of comes up. But there we go. There's mean people and there's nice people. And, it's just one of those things. I think, we do. I would say we probably 10% of our community is probably guys, and, we market to women, and we kind of talk specifically to women. But I think just my personality and the type of people that I attract when I do lives and we do events and my social media and all of that is just going to attract more women. And the guys that do join they know that our community is very, there's a lot of empathy, there's compassion, we're supportive, we're encouraging. Not to say that guys aren't that, but we're just a much more feminine-ish type of community. So that's just what we attract. But the guys in there are amazing. And when I first started the community, I didn't think there would be that many kind of like techie developer women out there, because I hadn't met any. But it's amazing how many will kind of come out of the woodwork when they see that there's other people like them. So
and that's what I was curious about. Like when you got into the industry, how many women developers were around, or even online specifically?
No, well, none that I was really aware of. When I first got into kind of online business, it was early 2017, and I came across a Facebook ad, and I watched a webinar, and I joined a community of other service providers, and I was the only developer in there. And I like when they found out that I knew how to code and I could do all this custom stuff. I was really, really popular, and people wanted to hire me because they had, this developer ghosted me, or this guy wasn't very nice, or whatever. Like the amount of times that I got clients because their last developer was crap happens all the time, or happened all the time. Yeah. All the time. It's like I tell my students, just be a decent human being, like reply to emails, answer, be helpful, be kind, and you will easily like stand above the rest. It's sad.
That's a great point. Yeah. And so to this point of like, when you got into the industry and you were heavy into WordPress and the coding side of things, I'm kind of curious, regardless of gender, like, why do you think the development end of things, why do you think that, how do I say this nicely? Maybe I don't need to say it nicely. Why are developers often just kind of dicks? Like, why, you know what I mean? Like, why does that, why? I'm kind of curious from your perspective, because how common is it that you go to a developer group, you get nasty responses to something, but if you go into a page builder group or a more business centric, people are generally more helpful. I'm kind of curious why. I don't know if you have any insight from that perspective.
Oh, that's a really good question. And I've never really thought about it. Why would
I
they?
have some theories I'm happy to share while you're thinking about it.
Let's hear.
Because my brother is a developer guy, and he is kind of a cynical type of person. And now he's very, very smart, super book smart. He can write all sorts of code, but he's not super warm when it, like, if he were in a group, he'd probably give you like a kind of nasty answer. I mean, he wouldn't be like mean, but it would be like very short and like, you know, this is how, I don't know. It's just, there's not a warmness to, and I don't know if maybe if you're thinking in code, and maybe it's a communication thing. Maybe people who are really, really into the development side of things in code think more in absolutes and math and numbers and like direct communication, whereas warmth, empathy, compassion, those are probably secondary to just like knowing the code and getting it done. So I don't know if that's maybe an aspect, like maybe I don't know if that's an aspect of it. Maybe a lot of those people are not trying to be mean. It's just how they come across. Whereas you can very definitely tell when somebody is doing that. I don't know. That's my perspective though, as far as like, maybe that's an underlying aspect of it.
I think that's probably a fair assessment for a good portion of folks. And I guess part of me would almost kind of question, well, is it just what we perceive, and people just accept it? And it's developers are not nice and non-developers are. I'm a nice person. I don't want to be a developer. Like, and even Hollywood kind of makes that perception as well. So is it just what people perceive? And you're right. You go into developer communities and they're not as nice as some of the others, but then there are nice developer communities. It's almost like the news. Like, the news will talk about all the bad stuff that's happening because that's sensational, but they don't talk about all the good, and there's still good stuff happening. So I almost wonder if it's just we remember the bad experiences and we associate the bad experiences with that community and that group, and the good people in those communities just didn't get a chance to, say, no, we are a good group of people. And that's exactly what Geek Pack is. So yeah. I think that could be part of it as well, but I like to see the good people.
That's really interesting. Well, everything rises and falls on leadership. So the way you come across, Julia, is very evident in Geek Pack. I'm sure. I mean, like you said, your vibe attracts your tribe. So you're going to get people who are maybe not exactly like you, but like-minded in some way. And helpfulness is a common trait with a leader, especially. I was thinking about a pro to a group. Let's say there is a development group, not Geek Pack, of course, that is still like a little, I don't know. I want to get in there. It gets nasty sometimes. The good news is, if you are a really nice, empathetic, compassionate developer person, you will stand out, like you said earlier, immediately. Yeah. So actually, this could be a really good thing because you don't have to be the best developer. You can just be the nicest developer, and you'll get way more work than that dude who's really good, but is also a complete jerk. No one wants to email him. So I don't know if you've seen that or that's a message you relay to your students, but I imagine that's a pro.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's a really good point. And that's really, like, at the end of the day, you be good at what you do and be kind and reply to people and, just do the things that you would do to a person in real life. Yeah. And I hate when people kind of hide behind, working online and they're never going to see me again and all that. Like, no, we're still real human beings. The person on the other side of the camera is a human being, and just treat them like you would want to be treated. It's basic, but yet it feels like not everyone kind of gets it.
I've taken that approach, side note, to with my daughter and with having a lot of kids. We're in and out of appointments left and right with hospitals and all kinds of stuff. And I do a lot of phone calls with like scheduling and stuff like that. And I realize those people have a job that is extremely unrewarding when it comes to like the people they're talking with, because everyone's talking to stressed out, or they just don't want to talk to them. So I've recently taken it upon myself to be extra nice and be super thankful and just talk, like you said, talk like I would talk to them in person. So the last time I scheduled something for my daughter, Bria, the gal on the other end, I was like, I'm sorry I missed your call. Or I think I left her a voicemail. I said, I'm sorry I missed your call. I was in the line of Chick-fil-A. I couldn't answer you. You'll understand. And she got back with me and said that made her day here and that. So just the littlest things of like us just being real can go such a long way when it comes to communicating with either clients or the developers or whatever. I absolutely love that approach. Also, to what you said earlier, when it comes to communication with clients, here's a shocking bit of news for everybody, especially earlier on. If you just show up and communicate within a decent amount of time, that's like 75% of getting clients is just communicating well and being punctual. That's what I've experienced, at least.
Yep, 100%. Absolutely. And I saw that all the time that I was working with clients. And one of the things that we have embedded in the new revamped WP Rockstar is the kind of whole client communication process, like from initial interaction to onboarding. And we have the whole kind of setup and ClickUp with a template and track and follow up and just make sure that you're constantly communicating and making sure that they feel heard and their questions are answered. And like, it's not rocket science. And it just having it all laid out just means that they are set up to win from the beginning and stand out from all the other douchey people that are out there.
Yeah, I love that. I'm really interested to get your thoughts and insight on AI as somebody who's in the developer world. Before I turn it over to you, Julia, my personal thought is that AI is not going to run web designers out of business. I think it is going to be a really good tool to help when it comes to building copy. And one of my colleagues who's a developer guy had a PHP issue, how timely, and used Chat GTP or PT to, I always get GPT confused with GDPR and all this stuff. Anyway, he used that to get a fix for this PHP code, which probably would have taken a bit amount of time in a forum or a group. So I think it's a really good tool to assist us. What's your thoughts on AI, and especially on the coding and development side of things?
Yeah, same. Using it to assist, it's just like Google. When I first learned to code, I was Googling errors that I would come up, or I was Googling stuff and I would be in Stack Overflow and trying to figure it out and trying different things. And if this is a shortcut to assisting, awesome. I mean, isn't that what we do as human beings, is we improve and we make things better. But I definitely don't think it takes anything over, because at the end of the day, it is a computer. It's not real. It's not human. And using it for copy prompts, using it to assist, absolutely, whether it's copy or writing code or whatever, writing a song, whatever people are using it for, idea generating, assisting, but I think things still need a human touch. And if it worked for your friend to come up with the PHP solution, amazing. Like, that would have been so awesome years ago when I had a bunch of, PHP issues and and you're right, going back and forth in a forum or Stack Overflow, trying to figure it out. It's just another tool to use in your business to fix a problem, to troubleshoot. but I don't think it should be the only one. And of course, double checking the work, because, who knows what it would spit out. It could be wrong. So
I love that you share that insight as somebody who's in a bit of a different side of the market than I am. I was really, really interested when things blew up with Chat GPT recently to see like, well, what are the people on the developer side of things? Like, are they all nervous that they're all going to lose their job because you could just get Chat GPT to write out some code? I agree. I think there's a lot to making AI work as a whole. And AI as a problem solving solution, not so much, at least as of now in my mind.
Yeah, agreed.
Do you feel like the majority of your community, and maybe it's split, I don't know, do you feel like they are business-minded people who need to learn code to fill in the confidence gaps? Or do you feel like they're coders and developers that need to learn the business side of things more?
Easily 50-50. And I think that's what makes the community so fun is they then will help each other out. Because we have some that are just like deep into the code and the websites and fixing problems and troubleshooting. But then we'll have the other half who already have clients, but the really techie ones are terrified of finding clients. It's the hardest thing in the world. They'll go down a PHP rabbit hole all day long versus reaching out to clients. But then we have the ones who have clients and, can give them that confidence and try this and have you tried that and then sharing and hiring each other. So it's easily a 50-50.
That's cool. That's a great distinction too. Cause it's like, it's kind of a good self-evaluator. Like ask yourself, everyone listening or watching right now, would you rather go to a sales meeting and talk with somebody and then get some help figuring out a PHP issue? Or would you rather dive into the rabbit hole and go online and go into groups and figure out an issue rather than going to a sales meeting? And it's probably a good distinction on, where you're maybe best suited for right now. Not to say that you can't do one or the other, but I do think it's really important to be self-aware about where your threshold is for those types of things. Because a lot of developers, I just know this from my experience, they really struggle with communication and sell. Like I used my brother as an example before. I had one development question one time with a client that I had him in on just to get his insight. And I could tell my client was like, I'm so glad I'm working with Josh, because I would not have sold what his brother was saying. But it was just because my brother was so smart and so in it. It was like he was talking like a developer to somebody who was not a developer. Yeah. And maybe that's it. Maybe if you are far into the coding world, again, kind of going back to the community and communication aspect, maybe your lens is talking with people on that level and on that plane, where when it comes to client side of things, you have to completely get outside of what you know and talk at their level. Is that something you've learned to help people with as well, as like stepping out of your area of expertise and really talking at the level of clients and people you're working with?
Yeah. And again, so much of what we teach now is just experience that we had. And I used to write proposals and I would go into all the detail about, all the features. I would leave out the benefits, and I wouldn't kind of say, it being mobile optimized. And like, I would just say it would be mobile optimized. Well, what's the benefit of a website being mobile? And then, so we try to tell our students now, don't focus so much on the features, because that's your bread and butter. That's what you're really good at. I know that's what gets you excited, but think about what the benefit is to the client and how the website being mobile optimized means that more people are on their phones and they can see it easy and they can navigate around and they can buy from it and they can book a call, and they just put it in reframe how you're explaining your super techie knowledge to someone who isn't super techie. I think you just try to get them to do that.
You just nailed it too with the little phrase "means that," or I've heard it in a lot of cases, "so that." So like you can say, if you need to dive into like what you know about a language or a theme or WordPress versus Wix, whatever, say that so that you get this result. Because if most people just stop at like, well, we use WordPress because this and this and this and blah, blah, blah. And the client's already tuned out. And then they're like, oh, now I'm like nervous and I'm not even excited about this anymore. But if you say we use WordPress and this because so that you'll have a site that we can scale and easier to manage. That is the key to get to the conversion when it comes to like sales. So I love that point. That can apply to anything, but particularly when it comes to talking with clients.
Yeah.
What a good reminder not to go too far.
Oh, yeah. Another thing that we do a lot, because I'm a massive introvert. Most of my students are, and we almost, like it's a joke that, about how we're all really introverted, but it kind of brings us together, and it's like, okay, well, we are, but how do we take the thing that we really want? And that's something we focus on is what is their why? Why is it that they want to learn this skill? Is it to be a stay-at-home mom? Is it to be a stay-at-home dog mom? Is it to, homeschool their kids or look after their elderly parents? Like whatever. So we try to get them to dig in at the very beginning. Why are they doing this thing that most people aren't doing? They're learning a skill, they're starting their own business. And we try to get them to keep that in mind. We actually mail out postcards as soon as someone joins a program, and we kind of explain, write down your why, and on it, they can write it down and post it somewhere so they can see it. And that really helps them kind of focus on when they need to do something that they're uncomfortable with, like speaking to a client or finding potential clients. And it's all finding clients is always the thing that we struggle with the most. And if I can get them to go, okay, I'm doing this uncomfortable thing that I don't feel good about doing because I want X and I know exactly what that is, it makes it a whole lot easier. Like, I'm an introvert, but my vision for my company is to reach over 100,000 women and help them learn tech skills. Well, I'm not going to do that if I don't do things like this. Being on podcasts, being the face, doing the things. That's not comfortable for me, but I put my own feelings aside, knowing that I might reach, 5 women in your community might go, oh, no way. I'm going to go and look at her website. Awesome. Like, that was worth my time. So we try to put a lot of things into perspective, into a bigger goal, bigger why, bigger vision, so that hard, uncomfortable, in the moment things are easier.
A lot of good life lessons there, particularly when it comes to getting out of your comfort zone. And I do think that's really common for web designers, whether they are more like the no code builder approach versus the coding type of development approach. Most web designers don't get in this game to go to networking groups. It's like, all right, I can design a website. Oh, shoot. If I'm going to sell it, I need to sell it to somebody. If I'm going to sell it to somebody, they need to know what I do and I'm really good. If they're going to need to know me, I'm going to need to get in front of them somehow, whether online or in person. So yeah, I do feel like sometimes that's the second phase to a web designer's journey is like, oh, shoot, I got to sell. That might be my next course. Oh, shoot, I got to sell. So yeah, I really love your approach, Julia. Like I said, I was actually just looking at your main website with Geek Pack and then WP Rockstar. So yeah, oh my gosh, I have so many questions that we could dive into, but what have you taken from your journey? Okay, here's something I'd love to kind of throw in your side of the court is, what's something that somebody would have told you when you were maybe a couple years, either in the beginning or a couple years into it, that really would have helped? And this you could take this however you want, but I'm just wondering, almost like if you could go back a decade and talk to yourself, because it sounds like you just got started about a decade ago. What's something you would tell yourself as a developer, in this world now?
Yeah. And I think it kind of goes back to what I just mentioned there, because when I first got started, I was just doing it. I was a military wife. We moved around a lot, and I'd had a previous career with the U.S. government that was going really well. When I met my husband in Afghanistan, he's British, so I left my job with the government. I moved to the UK, military wife, moving around, and when I first kind of started learning the tech skills and I started my online business, I didn't really have a why or a really good almost vision or mission for myself. And I'm not sure, I think if someone had explained it the way that I do now, it probably would have made sense to me, because I was terrified to find clients. I never thought I knew enough. I was constantly learning. I would go, squirrel syndrome, and I would buy more courses, all the things that we do. And I wish that I had known that if I could kind of say, okay, my why is this, then if I take a small step every day to help myself get to that, all that compounding will eventually get me there. And it could have happened a lot quicker than how long it actually took me. So I think just having a reason bigger than I want to work from home, I want to make more money. Those are fine reasons, but there's more to it. Like, well, why do you want to work from home? Why do you want to make more money? Like, dig deeper into your real intention and your real reason to do this thing. And then when the day is tough, when you have a hard day, and entrepreneur, we're like this, aren't we? Every day, every hour, every week, it feels like when you are at that low point, or you don't want to do something, you don't want to be on a podcast because you're on camera and someone's going to see you. And what if you mumble, or what if you say something silly, or all those things go through my head because I'm an introvert. Well, but I will do them anyway because I have a bigger reason as to why I'm doing them. But I had to get comfortable with that before I could kind of get comfortable with me going outside my comfort zone. And I really think, I do have a very big vision for my company, but I think anyone, if you're a single owner, business owner, you're building websites for folks, and you will have your own why. And what is that? And how can you take one small step every day, getting you closer to what that is? That's what I would have told myself.
That's good. Well, a couple thoughts on that. One is, I think the biggest importance for why that I experienced in my life is that if you don't have any sort of why, and this could be a micro why, like something small, like, I would just want to work from home, versus a big why, like I want to help 100,000 people do this. Regardless, when you go through the hard times, if you don't have something that you're going towards, you have to like push through it. But if you have something, I've found it helps pull you through it. Mm-hmm. That's the best way I can explain, at least, especially what I've dealt with JoshHall.co, with this brand of helping web designers, is like, I've felt a pull to get through the hard times in my business versus pushing through stuff like I did previously. Yeah. And another note that's kind of interesting about that is I do feel that whys change, and maybe yours did. Like, I don't know how grandiose that vision was, 3 or 4 years ago. So they do change. So then it becomes a point where, you're working from home now. So you hit your why. Now it's time for a new why. Or maybe you're halfway to that why and you're like, whoa. I don't want to work from home. I want a new home. And I want to do this for that. And then you're like, I want to do this, or it doesn't have to necessarily be money related, but there could be all sorts of whys. So it's an interesting message, an interesting point as far as having some sort of why. That, again, for me personally, my biggest takeaway on whys is to have a pull rather than a push.
Yes. Yeah. I've heard that on another podcast that I listen to all the time about the importance of a pull rather than a push. So
I thought I made it up. Dang it. I am thinking I'm so original. And I probably heard it and forgot about it and thought I made it up.
Well, there we go. I'll credit you.
All knowledge is borrowed. All code is ripped. All design is ripped off. So this has been really, really fun, Julia. Like I said, I think you are a very, very good referral partner for myself, because, like I said, I don't go too far into what you have set up. Can you tell us about, so Geek Pack is your main website. Is WP Rockstar, is that more of like a course and a program alongside of that? I have one final question for you, but I'd love to hear just the setup that you have in place here.
Yeah. So Geek Pack is the brand, is the business. But we also just recently, in the last 6 weeks or so, created a new product called Geek Pack. And that's the partnership with Udemy that I mentioned, where we've kind of expanded into not just WordPress and not just coding, but pretty much every tech skill you could imagine being offered with that. So that is a thing in and of itself. GeekPack is a product, and then WP Rockstar is a course, an online course, and that's what we call that.
Gotcha. So do you typically get geek packers to go rock star, or do you get rock stars to go geek? In terms of backgrounds,
yeah.
You're welcome to use that, by the way.
I know. I love that. I think I might have to tell my marketing manager. So WP Rockstar has been around for 5 years. So we have a lot more students who have gone through WP Rockstar. So a lot of my Rockstar students have now joined GeekPack, but we're starting to expand promoting GeekPack, and I've partnered with a number of economic development organizations, and I've got for example, Dress for Success in Denver. They're going to be sending some women through GeekPack, and we're creating custom curriculums for them, learning digital literacy. I've partnered with the Wyoming Women's Business Center, and they are sending, they have grant funding, and they're funneling that grant funding to us to create a custom curriculum for their women learning digital marketing for 6 weeks. So having this partnership with Udemy means that we have such a broad catalog that I have team members who are former teachers, and they take the content and they're kind of creating these custom learning paths, and they're doing live facilitation to get the women to go through the content, because we all know you buy courses and you never do anything with it. So we're combining this library of courses with live classes, custom cohorts, learning paths to take the overwhelm and kind of really narrow it down and teach the things that people want to learn. So
I think that is where online courses, if they're not already there, it's where they're going. It's one reason, like I mentioned earlier, I revamped my membership to include my courses inside Web Designer Pro, because I've had a lot of success with my courses. I get great testimonials, but I don't quite know like where students are at, and it's hard for me to track with standalone courses where everyone's at. I love having them centralized now to where we can set up sprints and quick wins and challenges to get through courses at a certain amount of time as a community, and as people come in with where they're at. That way we can get those results as quickly as possible. Because you're right, if you don't have accountability or some sort of, it doesn't have to be a cohort group style thing, or unless you're just extremely motivated to get through a course, most people don't, or they don't get through all of it. And it's like anything. If you pick and choose a few things that sound interesting, you're never going to get the full result. You got to go through it all if it's a really good course from start to finish to get the maximum result. Yeah. That's definitely what I've seen in the course world, at least. And it's good. It's a win-win, because it allows course creators to be able to better get results for students, which lead to more course sales and program sales. And it's better for students to get quicker results and have a community behind them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So cool. Are you stateside now, or are you still in the UK then?
No, we're in Durango, Colorado, and we have a ton of snow.
Okay, I was going to say, because your background seems so light still. I wonder, I didn't think you were in the UK. I figured it'd be dark because we're chatting in the afternoon. So that's cool. That's cool. I was also wondering where you got some of those connections, but it sounds like Udemy is kind of a built-in connection tool in that case.
Yeah, they've been, well, yeah, I mean, as far as getting the content, they've been great. I joined last year a local accelerator program for entrepreneurs, which I don't know if there's anything like that near where you are, but it was amazing for my business and the connections that I made. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, as I said, my vision is very big. So my role as CEO is, how do I get us towards that vision? Well, it's making connections. It's reaching out to nonprofits and economic development organizations and any organization that retrains women. I've got a call tomorrow morning with the unit that my husband used to work in, because they have funding to support the wives and girlfriends learning skills while the guys are, busy doing stuff. So, it's just kind of, I'm trying to think outside the box because 100,000 women's a lot. And, you can only run so many Facebook ads, right? So how can I think outside the box and reach thousands and thousands of women through organizations where those women already are? That's what I'm trying to do.
Where did just out of personal curiosity, where did the goal of or vision or why of 100,000, where did that come from? Was there a reason 100?
It's a big number. It's scary.
Cool number.
I took a course. It must have been a year and a half ago or so. It kind of almost a CEO course, really, because for so long I felt like I was a business owner, and then I was just doing a lot of stuff, and I wanted to learn how to be more of the visionary in the business. We're a team of 9. I've got eight other team members, and most of the day-to-day stuff is happening in the background. And I didn't know how to set goals. I didn't really know where that would come from. And one of the very first week of this course was to come up with your vision, mission, and core values. And it was an expensive course that went on for maybe 6 months. But that first week, I got more value out of that than everything else in there, because I created such a specific vision, that 100,000. And it was scary as everything. And back then, I didn't know how I was going to hit 100,000. I didn't know. I didn't have the partnership with Udemy. I didn't have all these other connections. Those came in time. But I allowed myself to dream big and to come up with this big, hairy, audacious number that I thought was ridiculous, but I might as well go for it. But because I allowed myself to have this big, ridiculous number, it gave me permission to make connections with people who would help me get to that number, to reach out and have partnerships with bigger organizations. Because if I didn't have that big goal, I wouldn't have been trying for that big goal.
I love that approach too, because sometimes if you set a goal or a vision or a why that is really grandiose or big, it absolutely, like you just illustrated, forces you to change your entire setup and mindset. It's like, you could take this on a smaller level too. As a web designer, you could say, I want to build and do a $10,000 project. I'm charging $1,000 on average right now. Don't do that, everyone. Okay, what's behind a $10,000 project? Probably a client that has a budget of at least, 500,000 per annual sales, maybe $1 million. What's involved with that? Probably some decent SEO setup, foundation, good conversion design, really, good design principles, mobile responsive, all those things. So you kind of work backwards. It's like, if I want to do this consistently, what do I need to do? Same thing in regards to as CEO. If I want to hit 100,000 people, you're probably going to have programs that are going to be catered to the masses and at scale, and you're going to have team members to fill in the gap. So like I said, you're not doing all the things constantly. Yeah. It's a great challenge for where I'm at right now too, because I've thought about that as well. Really interesting. That's actually a great thought to end this off of, I think, is to set a big, I think I've heard of this BHAG, big, hairy, audacious
goal. BHAG.
There it is. Yeah. I don't know if our coaching program is anything similar. I went through something similar. It was called Action Coach back in 2017. And that really, same thing. It was like, I learned a lot of stuff that was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. But it was those like planning and setting up the business and really thinking like a business owner that took me from the doer, the technician into the CEO seat. Yeah. So that's awesome. Well, Julia, this has been great. Super fun chat. I'm sure this is not going to be the first time, because I love your approach. I love your community. I love what you're up to. So we'll have the links in the show notes. We've got geekpack.com, WP Rockstar. We'll have that linked as well. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I had a blast. Thank you so much. It was awesome to chat all things kind of big vision stuff and all the way down to the nitty gritty of coding and all that. So it's conversations like these that remind me why I love getting to do what I do and meeting other just amazing entrepreneurs who are just good humans. So So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. What a compliment. That's like the nicest thing I could ever get as a podcaster. So I really appreciate that. I have no idea what I'm going to title this now. So I'm off to figure that out after this. So
awesome. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you, Julia. Talk soon. Hey friends, it's Josh here. I just wanted to mention a couple quick things before you head out. First off, if you've been enjoying the show, please consider leaving a podcast review. I personally read all the podcast reviews. I love hearing your thoughts and feedback on the show, and it also really helps grow this podcast. You can do that easily if you go to joshhall.co/podcast review, and you can leave a review wherever you listen to the show. And then I also wanted to make sure you know that for all the extras on every one of these podcast episodes, you can go to joshhall.co/podcast. We have a post there for every episode, which includes full transcriptions, timestamps, and all the links and resources that we mentioned. So just go to joshhall.co/podcast for all the extra goodies. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next episode.